If you want to climb to Grandmaster as quickly as possible, then it's time to master Genji. What's up guys, it's me, Coach Mills here, and today we're going over an advanced Genji guide, even factoring in the new Genji nerfs, and talking about how you can still succeed and even dominate with Genji regardless of his nerfed status. But if you enjoy the content, smash that subscribe and let me know down below what video guide you want to see next. Now you need to understand that Genji has a huge amount of skill expression. If you are placed into a lobby of players that are not as good as you and you're on Genji, you can often translate his kit directly into solo kills, pick off potential, hard carry blades, and you could literally put bad teammates straight in the backpack. Genji is the character that can navigate straight to the high ground very easily, while many other characters would have to navigate around to get to those juicy supports in the backline. Genji can just wall climb up and deal burst damage directly to them. In addition, he can use his mobility to route around the map in areas where enemies normally couldn't, taking special flank routes that enemies couldn't navigate, run away from enemies, and also easily dash away if he ever gets himself in a compromised position. Speaking of positioning, Genji's deflect and his mobility allow him to take a very greedy position where it's very difficult for enemies to actually easily punish a Genji, and this all adds to Genji's power level and his annoyance factor, which we'll revisit in a little bit. Now, all that stuff wouldn't be as big of a deal if it wasn't combined with his dueling capability, because Genji has some of the highest burst damage in the game. Not only can he easily destroy a squishy who is not paying attention to him, he can burst enemies that are actively fighting him. He has the ability to deflect damage back to enemies as he's dueling them, burst them down from 200 to 0 incredibly quickly, and if he ever gets in a fight that isn't favorable for him, he can run away with nearly zero way to punish him. Sounds pretty frustrating? Well, that is just a bit of what you can accomplish if you master this character. Let's first talk about Genji's neutral playstyle. And what do I mean by neutral? You're not actually going in and at an enemy. You're not dashing at an enemy team or trying to get a crazy pickoff. All you're doing is existing and applying pressure. Genjis often want to do this by playing the high ground or angles where they can play there and not get punished. And the Genji is poking enemies and pressuring them. And you might be saying, Mills, how am I supposed to hit my shurikens from this far away? I'm not at the enemy, so what am I doing? I'm not doing any damage. The idea here is that you're just putting additional pressure onto enemies. You hit an Ana with a couple of shurikens, she has to use a nade. You're putting extra pressure into enemies that are flying around or on the battlefield, and they can't just completely ignore you. You're building up ultimate charge while forcing them in slightly more uncomfortable positions with your team, adding pressure to them, and the most important factor of this is you're watching and waiting. I want you to be analyzing what abilities the enemy uses. I want you to be analyzing their position, and you could also take note of how much damage you're doing. There's a ton of different factors that you could see that can justify a transition from this neutral phase of Genji into the next phase, the fun phase, the playmaking phase. Now this is where you're dashing in, dueling an enemy, trying to get a kill, and then either go in for more with that dash reset, or just get out completely. Now there's several things that you need to consider before you make that transition from a neutral style of Genji into a playmaking style of Genji. There's a couple of things. What is your likelihood of survival if the play doesn't go correctly? Let's say you go for a risky play and you're dashing at someone and you don't quite kill them. Maybe they're at half HP or full, the dash doesn't kill them, and you have to hit a certain amount of shurikens to finish them, but they definitely get healed. You, of course, would never miss. And now you're stranded at the enemy in their team and you don't have dash, which is one of your best ways to get out. In addition to that, using your deflect early is often a huge mistake on Genji, because I do see like a lot of Genji players try to play for like the crazy Ana throws a nade into your deflect and you nade the entire enemy team. Most of the time, it's far better for you to use your deflect to enable your aggressive plays, because it increases that likelihood of survival if a play doesn't go correctly. This means that if you have your deflect, you can go for a slightly riskier play, relying on it to bail you out. Of course, you still need to keep in mind characters that can just beam through a deflect like Zarya and Echo, but for the most part, you do want to save this and have it so if you do decide to go in aggressively at an enemy, you have it to protect you in those sticky situations. Now, another factor you should consider is the success rate at actually getting a kill and getting your dash back. As you're poking, you're also going to see situations where your teammates get enemies low, or you manage to get an enemy low, or an enemy just happens to naturally be low for whatever reason on the battlefield, and you can push yourself up, position aggressively as these players get weaker and weaker, looking for a moment where you can go and dash in and finish them off. If that enemy is one shot, dashing at them where the second you make contact with them, they will die, assuming that in between those moments of you realizing it and you going in, they don't get bailed out or healed, that's a very high success rate. So even if you don't have your deflect, and even if maybe you're weak, and even if you are not crazy confident in your mechanical skill to pull off a duel with this opponent, you can still kill them, get that dash back, and then get right out. 180 dash right out of there. And that's the success rate. So far, there's two things you need to think about. The success rate of you getting a kill, so you can dash away or dash in more. And two, the likelihood of your survival if a play doesn't go correctly. Now, just mastering these two things, you can already become a really great Genji. But there is a third level that requires you to be more confident in your mechanical skill, and it's something more of an all or nothing play. You'll see this often with Grandmaster and top 500 Genjis. They will dash at a target that is full HP, and they basically will say, if I don't kill this person, I will die. And they do kill that person, and they don't die. Now, there's a lot of problems with this, and the biggest one is you have to be extremely confident in your own mechanical ability in order to pull off plays like these. Being able to dash at a Soldier 76, even when he's in his heal station, and be confident that you're going to be able to burst him down, get your deflect, and dash away within like a 2 to 3 second time frame before he gets peeled. That's confidence in your own mechanical skill, but the secret that Grandmaster players do that you don't is that they tailor how aggressive they go for these plays dependent on a number of things they see on the battlefield. If the opponent has low cooldowns, they're more likely to all-in them. If the opponent is isolated, they're more likely to all-in them. These are all these factors that allow them to be more confident in the 1v1 and their 1v1 abilities without allowing the enemy a situation where they get to actually get peeled out by a teammate or hit a skill shot or stall you out. Whatever the case may be, a Genji will often fish for these situations where the enemy is at a fundamental disadvantage. Whether they're low on resources, low on health, low on abilities, low on peel, no Riz, whatever the case may be, that Genji will look for it and they'll capitalize on that. Now, of course, the better and better your mechanics become, the more and more confident you become in your dueling capabilities, the more greedy you can be with these plays, the less isolated the enemies have to be, the more abilities they can have, and the more health they can have. But if you don't have these things, you can develop them over time. It's important that you build that fundamental level of success. The success rate with kills and the increasing your likelihood of survival, mastering those, and then eventually incorporating more and more aggressive plays as they meet your level of player. If players just try to play exactly like the Genjis that they watch, you're really setting yourself up for failure here. I'm defining exactly how they do it, but I'm not telling you that you should copy them until you slowly but surely become better at Genji. Now, the last thing that we definitely need to talk about is the Dragon Blade. A lot of players are trying to have success with it, but they're not getting the value that you should be out of Dragon Blade because it's one of the most powerful solo ultimates in the game. Now, there's several conditions for a successful blade. CC can completely shut you down. Damage, because when you pop the blade, enemies are all gonna look at you, and team pressure is something that is very important. I'll get to in a second. So what are the keys to having a successful blade? Number one, tracking crowd control. What crowd control is on the map that can shut you down? Whether it's on a sleep or Roadhog Whole Hog or Zarya Graviton, knowing what the enemy has is gonna better your success for a blade. Let me give you this example. You know that the enemy Ana has a sleep, but you keep pressuring her in that pressure stage of Genji, putting more and more pressure on that Ana, and you put her in a situation where she's low and she's a lot easier to blade, or she already wasted some cooldowns and backed off positionally. These are some of the things that you can do to make it so it's a lot harder for her to focus on hitting that sleep dart, and of course putting her in a situation where she never gets the opportunity in the first place. In addition to that, depending on who you're up against, you can definitely incorporate a reflect dash cancel within your blade to play around any of the CC that could fly at you before you stop your initial combo. Simply dashing up for your blade and activating it, and then activating your deflect while you fall down, countering any of the CC that comes out only to start your combo. Now, crowd control is definitely annoying, but also just damage can affect you with 5 people all shooting at you simultaneously. But the thing that you actually need to do to have more successful Dragon Blades is go in with team pressure. Far too many Genjis want to blade in a legit 1v5. And I know, you just rewatched Naruto for the 10th time, but here's the thing. It is going to be so much easier for you to get a successful blade off if your team is actively fighting the enemy at the same time that you're going in for your blade. Because in one situation, every bit of the enemy can look at you. They use no cooldowns, they're not under any pressure from your team, and they can all look at you flying in the sky with that blade. But in the other situation, your team did damage, they're pushing in, their focus is being diverted, or the enemy's focus is being diverted to your team, and then you're blading. This overwhelms the enemy, adding additional pressure, meaning they're more likely to miss their shots and miss their skill-based crowd control, but it also means that not every single person on the enemy team can actually focus you because your team is also pushing in. All you have to do here is wait for your team to actually be in the fight rather than trying to blade far past them and just go in by yourself. And of course, you could yell into comms, let's go, or something along those lines. And sometimes it works. Most of the time, people are okay with pressing W key, although most of the time it's a bit too much. Now, as far as damage alteration, the slash-dash combo that will one-tap if you have damage boost, discord, or if you have nano. For nano blading specifically, this is what you want to do to give your Anas the easiest time hitting you with the nano and you actually having the biggest blades. So what you do is you actually get to the high ground first. So you're already on a high ground perch, making sure that you have clear line of sight with your Ana. You're going to wall climb up the wall, not jump, no jumping yet. You literally wall climb up the wall and then you dash straight up in the air as high as you possibly can and activate your blade. Now, this does several things. One, you get a full view of the battlefield. So then as you're falling down, you get to decide who you're going on depending on their positioning. Two, it allows your Ana to really easily nano you because you're really high in the sky, straight up in the air. And one of the most important things that you need to understand about doing this is that you specifically did not waste your jump. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means mid-blade, you can actually add a jump because your double jump is not active. And this is a big mistake that a lot of Genji players make during blade. So you can literally dash at the Ana and then jump and the Ana will miss her sleep and you still have your deflect. So you get to dash at the Ana, slash jump or jump slash, whatever you want to do. The Ana misses, you kill the Ana, and then you go in for the rest of your combo. That's just one hypothetical, but you're giving yourself the most amount of information, allowing yourself to get nanoed the easiest, and you give yourself multiple ways to dodge damage and crowd control in that jump that you sandbagged and your deflect. You add all that combined, and you're going to have more successful nano blades. But in general, you're going to have a lot more successful blades just by going in with team pressure and trying to not be as greedy with your blades, going for like a 2-man or 3-man solo blade, and going in when your team is applying pressure, not trying to always go for these crazy 5-man blades where you're the hero trying to 1v5. Now, this was everything you need to get great at Genji, but if you enjoyed the content, press that subscribe and let me know down below what type of video do you want to see next. Thank you so much for coming by. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.